Welcome back, everybody, to another deep dive. And today we are going deep into the world of Judge Judy.
Yes, we are. I'm excited for this one.
Oh, me too. I always loved Judge Judy. She's got such a way with words, you know.
Oh, absolutely.
And she doesn't take any nonsense from anybody.
No, she does not.
So you sent me this awesome YouTube compilation called Judy Musical.
Yes.
But I gotta say, these cases are anything but musical.
Well, right. Yeah, we're talking family drama, vet visits from hell, neighbor disputes, you name it.
Yeah, it's like a symphony of crazy, isn't it?
It really is. And what I find so fascinating is how these cases, they really highlight those everyday conflicts, like the stuff we all kind of experience, but then, amplified through the lens of Judge Judy's courtroom.
Exactly. It's like watching a car crash in slow motion.
Yes. You can't look away.
And as we go through these cases today, we're going to be doing more than just, rubbernecking at the drama. We're going to be unpacking the legal nuances, the psychological underpinnings, and hopefully extracting some lessons we can all learn from these real-life courtroom clashes.
Absolutely. So buckle up, folks, because as we all know, you never know what Judge Judy's going to pull out of her, judicial hat.
Okay, let's dive right into our first case. The sibling showdown. This one is a real doozy.
Oh, yeah.
It's sister versus brother in a battle over belongings, boundaries, and a whole lot of broken promises.
Oh, man. This case really just throws you right into the deep end of family dynamics, doesn't it?
Yeah.
We meet Alyssa. She's a young mother of 3, and she's suing her brother Jordan and his girlfriend Carmela.
Right.
Now, Alyssa claims they sold or gave away some of her stuff after she'd been living with them rent-free for a while. But of course, the real story, it goes way deeper than that.
It does. It's so much more than just, who gets the couch or who gets the TV.
Exactly.
Because on the surface, you might think, well, if you're living rent-free, shouldn't you be grateful? Shouldn't you just follow their rules?
Right.
But then as we dig deeper, we start to see all these complexities in Elisa's situation. She had a breakup, she was facing homelessness, and she was really struggling financially. And so she turns to her brother for help. And
that's where the lines start to blur. Right, because Jordan and Carmela, they offer Elisa a place to stay, which is incredibly generous. But, did they actually set clear expectations? Did Elisa really understand the terms of this arrangement?
That's a good point. And that's where Judge Judy, she really excels at, kind of peeling back those layers and exposing those unspoken agreements or those misunderstandings.
She's a master at that.
So while they weren't charging rent, Elisa was supposed to be contributing financially when she could, help with groceries, and basically, hold up her end of the bargain. But it seems like that wasn't always happening.
Right. And from Jordan and Carmela's perspective, I mean, they're providing housing, they're putting food on the table, covering expenses, and Elisa isn't consistently, pulling her weight.
Right. It's like classic case of no good deed goes unpunished.
Exactly.
And Judge Judy really honed in on that, didn't she?
Oh, she did.
She zeroed in on Alyssa's financial choices, particularly the fact that she received a stimulus check over $11,000.
Wow. Well.
And what does she do? She goes on vacation to Colorado with a male friend.
Not a good look.
Not a good look at all. I mean, I think that's what really raised Judge Judy's eyebrows.
It definitely did. It raised a lot of questions about Elisa's priorities and her decision-making.
Right. And I mean, Judge Judy, she really wanted to know why. Why, as a mother of 3 who is struggling financially, why would you choose a vacation over, taking care of your kids, over securing your family's stability?
It's a good question.
It is.
And it's, it speaks to this larger issue of personal responsibility, right? The choices we make when we're faced with challenges, especially financial ones.
Absolutely. And then there's this whole issue of the missing computer, right? Elisa says Carmela sold it or gave it away without her permission, but Carmela's saying no. Alyssa actually asked her to sell it to pay off a debt she owed.
It's a classic he said, she said.
Right.
But even if Alyssa did ask her to sell the computer, the fact that Carmela just gave it away to a family member, that was a huge no-no in Judge Judy's book.
Absolutely. Carmela tried to defend herself, saying that she gave it to someone who needed it more.
Oh, come on.
But Judge Judy shut that down so quickly.
As she should.
Yeah. She emphasized that regardless of Carmela's intentions, she had absolutely no legal right to give away property that wasn't hers. And that's where things get really interesting, legally speaking. If you're living with someone, you have property there, what are the boundaries, what are the legal limits, and what they can do with your stuff?
That's a great question. And this case really brings that to light. It makes you think, doesn't it?
It does. And, Judge Judy, she didn't hold back. She delivered a pretty scathing assessment of Elisa's choices. She told her straight up, get your act together, prioritize your children, and stop blaming others for your situation.
It was tough love, but she needed to hear it.
Yeah, and a reminder for Jordan, too, right, about setting clear boundaries, maybe thinking twice about, offering that kind of open-ended assistance.
Yeah, because sometimes those good intentions can backfire.
Absolutely. And that's what's so interesting about Judge Judy. It's not just about the ruling. It's about, those life lessons, those nuggets of wisdom that she throws in there.
She's not just a judge, she's a life coach.
That's a good way to put it. And she does it all with that signature Judge Judy wit and charm.
Oh, absolutely. She's one of a kind.
Okay, are you ready to move on to a case that's a little more claws out?
Bring it on.
All right, our next deep dive takes us into the vet visit from hell, where a frantic cat owner, a COVID protocol, and some very different accounts all collide.
Oh, this is going to be good. I love the vet visit one.
Oh, yeah, me too. They're always so unpredictable.
They really are. And this one in particular, it raises these questions about how we manage our emotions, under stress. And how miscommunication, it can just spiral out of control and lead to these explosive results.
Yeah, so let's set the scene here. We have John. He's a very worried cat owner, and he rushes his injured cat to the vet. Now, instead of following the clinic's COVID protocol, which required calling from the parking lot, he just bolts straight to the front door, completely bypasses the rules.
Yeah, I can understand the panic.
Yeah.
His cat was hurt. He wanted to get him help immediately. But still, you got to follow the rules.
Right, but that disregard for the protocol, it really set the stage for a confrontation.
Yeah, and the vet assistants, Heather and Hannah, they try to explain the policy, but John is already, he's agitated. He's not having it, and it quickly becomes confrontational.
And John himself, he admits to using some, colorful language, let's just say.
Right.
And demanding, immediate attention for his cat.
But here's where the stories really diverge. John claims that Hannah physically confronted him, got right up in his face, and was yelling, telling him she wasn't intimidated by him. He pushes her away, and that's when Heather gets involved, and he says both of them start slapping him in the face.
Whoa.
I know, right?
Oh.
And it gets even crazier. He claims that later on, Hannah blocks his car, hits him with her fist, and he had to pull her off of him by her hair.
Wow, this went from 0 to 100 real fast.
It did. But hold on, because Heather and Hannah, they paint a very different picture.
Oh, I bet they do.
They say John was super aggressive and threatening from the moment he walked in. They say he pushed Heather first, and she only pushed back after he spat in her face.
Okay, so we have incredibly high emotions. We have conflicting accounts. Who do you believe?
It's tough, right? And like a lot of these cases, I think the truth is probably somewhere in the middle.
It probably is. And, this case, it's not just about figuring out who threw the first punch.
Right.
It's about understanding how quickly things can go sideways, especially in a high-stress environment like a vet clinic where people are already on edge. They're worried about their pets.
Absolutely. And it also raises those questions about, the responsibility of the business to enforce their own policies even when they have a difficult customer.
Right.
So do Heather and Hannah, do they have the right to protect themselves to enforce those rules? Or do they overreact to John's, understandable distress?
These are such great questions. And I think we need to unpack those a little bit more. But first, I got to know, what did Judge Judy have to say about all of this?
Well, let's go back to the courtroom and see how she untangled this mess, shall we?
Oh, yes, please, because I have a feeling she had her work cut out for her on this one.
I think you might be right about that. So the police get called to the vet clinic, and it is pure chaos.
Oh, I bet. Was anybody arrested?
Well, the officer, he noticed red marks on Hannah's neck. And there was hair, like literally hair falling out of her head.
Oh, my goodness.
I know, right? And then John, he had a black eye, which he said came from Hannah, punching him.
Oh, wow. So it was a full-on brawl, basically.
Pretty much. It's a total mess, and nobody is backing down.
So how in the world did Judge Judy even start to sort this out?
Well, like always, she starts by really looking closely at John's testimony.
Right.
She questions his actions, his anger, and she brings up the fact that John had been to this vet before during COVID. So he knew their protocol.
Yeah, that's a good point. Like, if he knew the rules, why just ignore them? Was he really that panicked, or was there something else going on?
Exactly. And Judge Judy, she doesn't let that slide. She also asks him, Why not just leave and find another vet if you think there's nobody there to help your cat?
Right.
So John admits to being, angry and kind of a jerk, but he claims he was provoked.
So once again, it's a he said, she said situation.
It is. But with all that stress, those heightened emotions, and then totally different ideas about what's okay and what's not.
Yeah, it's like this perfect storm of miscommunication and just over-the-top reactions.
Totally. And this actually reminds me of something that was happening a lot during the pandemic.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, a lot of these essential workers, they were facing so much abuse from customers who were just, I think, stressed and on edge.
Oh, for sure.
So this case, I think it kind of highlights how important it is to be understanding on both sides, even when things get a little heated.
Yeah. Empathy goes a long way, doesn't it?
It really does. John's obviously worried about his cat, but that doesn't give him the right to act the way he did.
Right.
And the vet assistants, they were just doing their jobs trying to enforce the rules.
Yeah.
But they also got caught up in that whole, escalating conflict.
Absolutely. So this case is really a lesson in de-escalation.
It is.
And I think Judge Judy, in her ruling, really tried to bring that home. So she actually dismissed John's case.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. She said she understood his worry for his cat, but his behavior was unacceptable. She believed the vet assistants and basically reminded John that, there are better ways to handle those stressful situations.
And that's a valuable lesson for everyone, isn't it?
Yeah.
I mean, how do we stay calm when things get really tough,
Yeah.
How do we communicate our needs clearly, but still respect those rules and boundaries that are there to protect everyone?
Those are some great questions. And, speaking of boundaries, our next case takes us right into the middle of a classic neighbor dispute where those boundaries get really, really blurry.
Oh, no.
Oh, yes. Get ready for the neighborly nightmare.
Okay.
This one's got it all. Pool parties, security cameras, and accusations that are flying faster than a Frisbee in a hurricane.
Oh, boy, this sounds juicy. It's amazing how these little disagreements can turn into these huge feuds, isn't it?
It really can.
Like everybody loses.
Exactly.
So in this case, we have Zachary. He's accusing his neighbor, Nancy, of keying his car.
Right.
But then Nancy, she claims she was falsely arrested. So she's countersuing. I know, it is just layers and layers of accusations and just bad blood.
So did this all start with some kind of pool party gone wrong?
That's right. So Zachary's daughter, Jillian, she wanted to have a pool party.
Okay.
And she invited her friend, Patrick.
Mm-hmm.
And Zachary, he told her she could only have one friend over.
Okay.
Because his son was going to be watching them.
Makes sense.
Right. Well, Nancy's granddaughter happened to be at Patrick's house. And she was initially invited to swim, too.
Oh, boy. I can already see where this is going.
I know, right?
Yeah.
It's trouble from the start. So when Patrick shows up at Zachary's, Nancy's granddaughter is told, "Sorry you can't come. Only one friend allowed." So, of course, the granddaughter's upset, goes home crying. Nancy finds out and decides to march right over to Zachary's to, get some answers.
Yeah, I think that's a pretty understandable reaction. Wouldn't you want to know why your grandchild was excluded?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
But, surprise, surprise, both sides have totally different versions of what happens next.
Oh, I bet they do. Lay it on me.
Okay, so Zachary says it was actually Nancy's daughter who came over.
Okay.
And she didn't even bother with the front door, just went straight back to the pool area and started yelling at him, calling him names.
Oh, geez.
Right. So Zachary says he told her to get off his property, to never come back, even threatened to call the cops if she or anyone in her family set foot on his property again.
Wow.
But Nancy insists it was her who went over.
Okay.
And she was totally calm, just wanted to understand what happened. She says Zachary was the one being rude, using bad language, and making threats.
So we've got two very different versions of the same event. This is a recurring theme, isn't it?
It really is.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, this first fight just sets the stage for even more hostility.
I was going to say, this is just the beginning, right?
Oh, yeah. Buckle up.
Yeah.
So months later, Zachary finds this big scratch on his car and immediately thinks, Nancy did it.
Well, did he have any proof?
He says he checked his security footage, saw Nancy walking her dog past his car, and he says her hand moved in a suspicious way right as she passed the spot where the scratch is.
Okay, so he called the police based on that.
Yep. Just the footage and Zachary's word. So Nancy is arrested for vandalism, spends the night in jail, has to hire a lawyer, the whole 9 yards.
That's a lot. But did they ever prove that she was the one who actually did it?
That's the thing. There was no smoking gun.
Oh, really?
Nancy totally denies doing anything to Zachary's car.
Okay.
She says she was just moving her arm normally as she walked her dog.
Uh-huh.
And she points out that this isn't the first time Zachary's accused someone of messing with his cars.
Oh, so he's done this before.
Yeah. Just a few days earlier, he filed a police report saying someone damaged his truck.
Okay.
But in that case, no video evidence and no charges were filed.
Interesting. So maybe he just has a tendency to blame his neighbors for everything.
Could be. So Judge Judy has a lot to think about. Does the video really show anything? Who's telling the truth? And is Zachary just biased against Nancy?
Oh, man. Judge Judy loves to unravel these kinds of messes.
She does. So she watches that security footage over and over and over. And she asks Nancy, why did you stop right behind Zachary's car?
Right.
So Nancy says she had to fix her dog's leash, and she insists she would never damage Zachary's property.
But it's a little suspicious, isn't it? I mean, why walk so close to his house when they already can't stand each other?
That's what Judge Judy thought. She basically asked Nancy, things are so bad, why are you even walking down that street?
Right, unless she was trying to, get a rise out of him.
Exactly. And then Nancy's husband, Jerry, he tries to jump in and defend her.
Oh, no. Never a good idea.
Never. He starts talking about how Zachary's always accusing people, bringing up that truck incident, but Judge Judy shuts him down immediately.
Of course she does.
It's like, nope, that's irrelevant. We are not talking about the truck.
She is not messing around.
Not at all. So what's the verdict?
Yeah, what did she decide?
Well, Judge Judy dismisses Nancy's counterclaim for false arrest.
Okay.
She says the police had enough reason to arrest her based on the video and Zachary's story. But she only awards Zachary $500 for the damage to his car.
Wait, really? Didn't he say it was way more than that?
He did. He had an estimate for like $2,500.
Oh.
But Judge Judy wasn't convinced at all that that little scratch was worth that much.
Okay.
She also said she wasn't totally sure Nancy did it on purpose, but she was definitely acting shady by being right there by the car at that moment.
So basically, she thinks Nancy's at least a little bit responsible, even if it was an accident.
Exactly. It's a very Judge Judy ruling, kind of a compromise.
Yeah.
She knows Zachary might be exaggerating, but Nancy isn't completely innocent either.
It really shows how complicated these neighbor disputes can be. One little thing can escalate so quickly.
It's true. And in this case, it really reminds us to choose our battles, be respectful of those boundaries, and, sometimes just let things go if you want to have any peace in your life.
Well said. So are you ready for a case that's a little darker, a little more, intense?
Hit me with it.
All right. Our next deep dive takes us into the revenge porn case.
Ooh.
This one is about a broken relationship, a missing phone, and some pretty serious accusations.
Okay, this is heavy stuff. Revenge porn is no joke.
It's not. And this case goes way beyond just a fight over who gets to keep what after a breakup.
So tell me, what really stood out to you in this one?
Well, right from the start, you can feel the tension. I mean, David, the ex-boyfriend, he's acting all casual, like nothing's a big deal. He says they just had a fight, and Joangela, his ex, just took off and left him stranded. But when Joangela tells her story, it is a whole different world.
Okay, what happened according to her?
Well, she says that after they broke up, she saw David at a bar, and he was showing other people these intimate videos of her. I know, right?
That's awful.
It is. And she asked him to stop, but he just blew her off, saying he could do whatever he wanted with his phone.
So this is definitely revenge porn, right?
It sure sounds like it. And before we go any further, can you explain what that actually means legally?
Yeah, basically it's when someone shares explicit pictures or videos of another person without their consent.
Okay.
And they're doing it specifically to hurt or embarrass the victim.
Right.
It can have a really devastating impact on a person's life, their reputation, their relationships, everything. And thankfully, it's illegal in a lot of places.
So if David really did show those videos without Joangela's permission, he is in big trouble.
Oh, yeah. And Judge Judy, she takes this stuff very seriously. But it can be hard to prove.
I can imagine. It's basically one person's word against the other.
Exactly. So Judge Judy, she does what she does best. She starts asking very specific questions, trying to get a clear picture of what happened and when.
Okay, so was there any evidence that David was harassing or stalking Joangela after the breakup?
Well, David says they had zero contact after the initial breakup.
Uh-huh.
But Joangela says there was this one incident where they were driving together going to see her cousin's band, and she got so upset with him that she just got out of the car and left him there.
That does sound like maybe there's a pattern of bad behavior there from David.
Right. And it could support Joangela's story.
Okay.
So then Judge Judy shifts focus to the missing phone.
Okay.
David's claiming he was charging his phone at the bar,
Uh-huh.
and Joangela just took it and threw it away.
So did she admit to taking the phone?
She did. But she said she did it because of what David was doing with those videos.
Right, like she felt totally violated. She wanted to stop him from sharing them with anyone else.
Exactly. And that's a tough one legally, right? Because even if you feel justified, you can't just go around destroying someone's property.
Right, right.
So Judge Judy starts to question David, and he's being really evasive.
Oh, really?
He says he's deleting the videos, but then Joangela, she pulls out this letter saying that David actually backed up all his data.
Right. Oh, so he was lying.
Looks like it.
Yeah.
And then wait for it, there's an email.
Ooh, an email. Tell me more.
Okay, so Joangela reveals that David sent this incredibly graphic email to her boss, sharing all these personal details about their relationship.
Oh, my gosh.
I know. He was trying to humiliate her, to ruin her reputation.
Wow, that is low.
It really is.
Yeah.
Classic harassment. And Judge Judy is furious.
Oh, I bet she let him have it.
She did. She basically tore him apart, called him out for disrespecting Joangela's privacy and for trying to sabotage her career.
Good for her. I mean, that's the thing with Judge Judy. She sees right through those BS excuses.
Oh, she does.
Yeah.
And she also brings up the fact that there's an active restraining order against David.
Oh, wow.
Which, of course, David claims he never got served with.
Mm-hmm.
But Judge Judy confirms that he was served and reminds him how serious it is to violate that restraining order.
That is a strong message. It shows she really cares about the impact of, people's actions, not just, the legal technicalities.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And in the end, she awards Joangela $5,000 for the emotional distress and the damage to her reputation.
Wow.
But she does deduct $500 for the phone, because destroying property is still wrong even if you're angry.
So she's acknowledging both sides, right?
Right. It's a really nuanced ruling. She sees that David was way out of line sharing those intimate videos. But Joangela also went too far destroying his phone.
It really shows how complicated these revenge porn cases can be. It's not always so black and white.
It's not. And this case really highlights how important it is to respect each other's privacy, even after a relationship ends.
Yeah, because digital stuff, it can be so easily shared, and the consequences can be, really long-lasting.
Absolutely. We need to be so careful about what we share and what we do online, because once it's out there, it's out there.
So true. So are you ready for something a little, fluffier?
Oh, yeah. Bring on the puppies.
All right, our next case involves a cute little puppy, but there's a lot of drama behind those adorable eyes.
Uh-oh. I have a feeling this is more than just puppy love gone wrong.
Oh, yeah. It's a case about contracts, ethical breeding, and knowing what you're getting into when you buy a furry friend.
So set the scene for me. Who are the players in this puppy-fueled drama? We have Kenneth. He's a dog breeder, and he's suing Zach, the buyer, for the rest of the money he's owed for this puppy.
Okay.
Zach, though, he's saying the dog isn't the purebred American bully he was promised.
Oh, boy.
So now he wants to return the puppy. Classic buyer beware situation. But this one's got some twists.
Okay, I am all ears. What are the twists?
So Kenneth, he's all about being a reputable breeder. He's talking up the tricolor American bullies.
Mm-hmm.
He claims he talked to Zach about the dog's parents, the price, everything before the sale.
Sounds pretty straightforward so far. So what's Zach's side of the story?
Well, Zach says there was never a contract, nothing in writing.
Oh.
And they just agreed on a price of $500, just talking, And he says Kenneth guaranteed the dog was a purebred American bully. But then come to find out, it's mixed breed.
That's a problem. So how did they figure out if the dog was actually purebred or not?
Yeah.
Did they bring the puppy into the courtroom?
Oh, I wish. But no, Judge Judy, she starts asking Kenneth some really pointed questions about the American bully breed.
Oh, I bet she did.
Yeah, she's like, isn't it just a mix of different breeds anyway, including pit bulls?
Right.
Kenneth, he kind of stumbles around trying to explain that, yeah, the American bully started out as a mix, but now it's its own breed.
Okay.
But Judge Judy, she is not buying it. She's not fooled by those fancy breed names.
Not at all.
She even mentions how insurance companies, they still consider American bullies high risk because they can be aggressive.
Oh, that's a good point.
She basically accuses Kenneth of trying to make the dog seem like something it's not.
Right.
Knowing that purebred makes it sound more valuable.
Yeah, and more people will buy it. So it sounds like Kenneth's not being totally honest here.
Not at all. And then it gets worse for Kenneth.
Oh, no. What happened?
Zach found some Facebook posts where Kenneth was advertising the puppies.
Uh-huh.
And he's saying he'll negotiate, make deals because he can't sell them.
Oh, busted.
Yeah. So now he's contradicting himself, right? Because he said he had a set price and he's this super in-demand breeder.
Right. Busted.
Yeah. So Judge Judy really starts grilling him about the price. The only proof is a text from Zach where he mentions $500. Kenneth insists they talked about a higher price, but Judge Judy's not convinced.
Man, Kenneth's really digging himself a hole here. No contract, inconsistent stories, not looking good.
Nope. And Judge Judy, she makes it clear that if you don't have it in writing, it's your word against the other person.
Yeah, you got to have that paper trail.
You do.
Yeah.
So what about Zach? Why didn't he just return the puppy right away if he wasn't happy?
That's a good question.
Well, Zach says he did contact Kenneth within like the first week and asked if he could bring the dog back. And Kenneth said, yeah, sure. But then it sounds like they had a communication breakdown and things just fell apart. So Zach decided to keep the puppy, but he refused to pay the full amount because he felt tripped about the whole purebred thing.
Right, so they tried to work it out, but it didn't go anywhere.
Exactly. And then, this is the crazy part, Judge Judy, who we know doesn't mess around, she gives Zach a choice.
Okay.
He can give the puppy back to Kenneth and get his $100 back.
Okay.
Or he can keep the dog and pay Kenneth the remaining $400.
Wow, that's really generous of her. I mean, she's usually much tougher than that.
I know, right? It seemed like she saw that Zach had really bonded with the puppy.
Yeah, and returning a pet, that's so hard emotionally.
It is. But she also reminds Zach that agreements are important.
So what did Zach decide? What a tough choice.
He actually chooses to return the dog.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it was a really emotional moment. He said it was heartbreaking, but he felt like it was the right thing to do.
That says a lot about his character. It would have been so easy to just keep the puppy, but he did what he felt was fair.
He did. And this whole case just shows how crucial it is to be honest and upfront when you're buying or selling anything, especially a living creature.
Absolutely. Do your research, ask questions, get everything in writing.
Yes. And remember that animals aren't just things to be bought and sold. They deserve to be treated with kindness and respect.
Well said. Well, what a journey this has been. From family drama to crazy vet visits, neighbor wars, revenge porn, and puppy problems, Judge Judy has seen it all.
She has. It's amazing how these everyday conflicts can end up in court, isn't it?
Yeah.
It just shows you conflict is a part of life, and sometimes you need someone like Judge Judy to help you figure things out.
What I love is how these cases, they teach us so much about people, their motivations, their biases, their sense of fairness, and sometimes, unfortunately, how they try to deceive others.
It really is like a crash course in human psychology. And Judge Judy's the professor. She breaks it all down, no-nonsense style.
Exactly. And she doesn't just hand down a ruling. She really wants people to understand why they ended up in her courtroom in the first place.
And hopefully learn from their mistakes, right? And what I find so interesting is that she's not afraid to challenge the status quo. She'll call out hypocrisy wherever she sees it, even if it's coming from big companies or institutions.
Oh, absolutely. Remember that time she went after that credit card company for their shady practices?
Oh, yeah. She was like, bring on the lawyers.
She is fearless. She stands up for what she believes is right, even when it's hard. And that's what makes her such a powerful voice for justice.
Totally agree. She holds everyone accountable no matter who they are or how much money they have. And her rulings, they go beyond the specific case. They teach us how to deal with conflict, how to manage our finances, and how to understand the legal system.
Yeah, it's like she's giving us a toolkit for making better choices and understanding our rights and responsibilities.
I love that. A toolkit for life.
Right. Well, it's been such a fun deep dive into the world of Judge Judy. We've laughed, we've been shocked, and I think we've all learned something new today.
We have. And I think the biggest lesson is this. No matter how messy or crazy things get, there's always hope for justice, for accountability, and for just using a little common sense.
Couldn't hit it better myself. Thanks for joining us. We'll be back next time with another deep dive. Until then, stay curious, and as Judge Judy always says, don't pee on my leg and tell me it's raining.